Hello and welcome to World News here on TVP World. I'm Marie Cato. Case closed. That's what Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk posted on social media in response to a Polish court's decision not to extradite a Ukrainian diver suspected of blowing up Nord Stream 2, a gas pipeline connecting Russia and Germany. The pipeline was rendered inoperative after a series of explosions in September 2022. Ukraine's Volodymyr Zhuravlov was detained last month under a European arrest warrant issued by German authorities. The Prime Minister called the court's ruling, which also released the man from detention, the right decision. And that's in line with public opinion. Less than 30% of Poles would welcome the extradition of the suspect, according to a survey by pollster Ibris. The court verdict comes as former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder appeared before an investigative committee in his country and impatiently defended the plan to build Nord Stream 2, which never became operational due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy is in Washington for another crucial meeting with Donald Trump. The Ukrainian leader also met with an American arms manufacturer and energy company in the hopes of boosting his country's defenses ahead of the winter. Our correspondent Alex Cadier is in Kyiv and has the details.
Well, the key objective for President Zelenskyy in Washington will be to have the ability to purchase more weapons from the United States, both defensive air defense weapons like perhaps more Patriot systems or other systems that could help defend the skies over this country, as well as offensive weapons like those much vaunted, much discussed Tomahawk missiles. Very long range, very effective missiles, which Donald Trump has said he had basically made a decision as to whether or not he would give them to Ukraine. That may have changed with the discussion with President Putin, but all that is on the table for the discussions between Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the president of Ukraine, and Donald Trump in the next few hours. Clearly, a lot on the line for the Ukrainian president, especially if you think about the 6 major attacks on energy infrastructure in this country since the start of October. The president of Ukraine needs air defense, needs more weaponry to be able to fight back effectively against Russian aggression. He will also want to limit, if not altogether cancel out, the influence of Vladimir Putin on Donald Trump. As I said, a lot on the line in this very important meeting. In Kyiv, I'm Alex Cadier for TVP World.
As talk grows about a possible Trump-Putin meeting in Hungary, Brussels is calling for caution. The summit isn't confirmed, and officials say it's too soon to speculate. If it does happen, the goal would be to end Russia's war on Ukraine without repeating past diplomatic mistakes. Our EU correspondent is in Brussels and has the details.
Don't jump the gun. This was the message coming out of Brussels on Friday regarding that tentative meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, expected to take place in at least 2 weeks' time in the Hungarian capital of Budapest. While the details are still being firmed up, we did hear the European Commission state that while they welcome any meeting that brings us closer to peace, particularly for Ukraine as that country weathers another year of Russian aggression, they did not want to speculate too much regarding the mechanics of what this meeting could look like and potentially the EU's involvement. They did clarify, however, the rules regarding how that plane carrying Putin would actually land in Hungary, as it is expected it would travel over at least some few EU member states. They clarified that it is up to the countries within the European Union to approve whether this plane will enter their airspace. TVP World did ask some diplomats here in the Belgian capital. They spoke to us on the condition of anonymity. They responded to our questions whether they would open up their skies for that plane, stating that they were all allies of US President Donald Trump. They did not want to poke the bear, and they would also help progress peace if that meeting were to occur. However, many stressed substance over style here. They don't want a repeat of that summit in Alaska, where US President Donald Trump met with Russian President Vladimir Putin, the red carpet being rolled out for Putin, him given a platform to spread his propaganda to journalists, and there being no meaningful outcomes for Ukraine regarding peace being brokered there. However, this is a developing news story, and as those official lines emerge, also regarding the official timings of this proposed summit, we'll report them for you. Angela Scugins from Brussels for TVP World.
Kyiv is ready to protect Slovakia against threats to energy supply, said Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko after a meeting with her Slovakian counterpart Robert Fico. Both leaders met on Friday in the city of Košice in eastern Slovakia, but the meeting failed to produce a significant breakthrough. Bratislava is locked with Kyiv in a row over the transit of Russian gas, which Slovakia is still a major purchaser of. Since January, Ukraine has halted the flow of the fuel through its territory, and Kyiv hasn't shown willingness to change its stance in this regard. Prime Minister Fico reiterated his support for Ukraine's EU membership, but also opposition to the country entering the NATO alliance. But the meeting signals a thaw in relations between the two countries, with Slovakia's government sending military assistance for Ukraine in October for the first time in 2 years. Robert Fico in the past criticized Slovakia's help for Ukraine. He also opposes sanctioning Russia and the ban on Russian energy. The newly established NATO centre in Norway has sent an aircraft on a combat mission for the first time. A pair of F-35s were scrambled from Evans Air Base to identify a Russian aircraft near the coast of the northern region of Finnmark. The Norwegian Air Force Command has announced that they intercepted a Russian reconnaissance aircraft over the Barents Sea on Tuesday. The mission, coordinated by the new Combined Air Operations Centre in Bodø, was part of the Quick Reaction Alert System requiring rapid deployment of aircraft on duty. The Russians were reportedly on a routine flight in international airspace over the Barents Sea. According to the Norwegian Air Force, the operation proceeded calmly and without serious incidents. In Georgia, the ruling Georgian Dream Party has passed a law restricting political activities of individuals. The new law means that certain people could effectively be barred from any political activity if they are associated with parties deemed unconstitutional by the country's constitutional court. Such individuals could be banned from founding or joining a party, holding office or standing in elections. They could also be forbidden to keep their parliamentary mandate. Georgian lawmakers also passed a bill that increases penalties from protest offences. Immediate detention of up to 20 days will be administered to those covering their faces found in possession of fireworks or blocking roads. Both bills come as the ruling Georgian Dream Party faces continuing protests that started after last year's parliamentary elections, marred but with irregularities pointing to Russian interference. The Georgian Dream is now the only party in the country's parliament and is increasing its bid to crack down on the United National Movement, the former ruling party. In Latvia, police took down a cybercrime group suspected to be responsible for thousands of scams across Europe. 7 members of the network were arrested. This footage shows a Latvian counter-terrorism unit smashing down the doors of the group's hideout. Authorities say the suspects arrested in the raid were responsible for more than 3,000 fraud cases in Latvia and Austria. The losses reportedly amount to nearly €5 million. The operation was a joint effort of Austrian, Estonian and Latvian law enforcement together with Europol and Eurojust. Poland's lower house of parliament has passed a bill to phase out fur farming. The farms will be required to cease their activities by the end of 2033. Those who do not do so by 2031 will be eligible for compensation.
A majority of Polish MPs have backed an amendment to the Animal Protection Act, which introduces a ban on fur farming. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has commented on the achievement.
The ban on fur farming has finally been passed. It wasn't easy, but after many years of struggle, we've done it.
The amendment imposes a complete ban on the rearing and breeding of animals for fur, with the exception of rabbits. The first attempt to introduce such a ban was proposed by the right-wing Law and Justice Party in 2020. At the time, the amendment sparked protests among farmers and caused a political crisis within the ruling party. On average, Poland has killed 3 million animals per year for their furs. Even though the fur industry in Poland is shrinking, with a decrease from 810 fur farms in 2015 to just 209 in 2024, the country remains the second largest fur producer in the world.
And that's all for World News. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for news in depth. Goodbye.